My contractor did a really good job on this clearing. We're going to put a 12 by 16 shed here, 12 foot wide, 16 foot that way. And we're going to put it up on pier blocks with an adjustable bracket. But the first thing that we have to do before we can start putting those blocks down is we need to mark out exactly where that shed is going to go. We're going to start by using a method that I saw on a channel called The Essential Craftsman. And I will link that video below in the description. But the first thing that we want to do is establish an arbitrary line that we are going to build off of. Now that arbitrary line, that arbitrary line is going to be on one of the long sides of my building. So let's go ahead and get some stakes in for that first line, and we're going to make it longer than the 16 feet that I actually want my building to be. Okay, so we have those two stakes in. Okay, so we have our two stakes in, and they are way more than 16 feet long. The next thing we want to do is attach a string line to them. And I want my string to be level because, again, level makes a difference when it comes to measurements. So I'm going to start at a point about 12 inches above. I happen to know that this corner is the highest corner on this section of property. So about 12 inches above is about where this hole is in this stake. And I am going to put a lark's foot. And I'm going to get right up there so you can see this. So a lark's foot, I think is what it's called. You just make a loop and then you fold the loop over. I am doing this too close. You make a loop, you fold the loop over, and you grab the string from inside. Now this will tighten up, but it's very easy to bring out and it's not a permanent knot. So I am going to put this lark's foot so that it will tighten up on the outside of my stake when I pull it. And now as I pull, that will not turn and it will not loosen. And down at this end, I'm just going to make it so that the attached end overlaps the loose end, and then the tension on that attached side, as we pull it tight, will actually hold my string in place. Now, I also want to make sure that that is level. So I could grab out my laser level. It's really not that important right now, but I have a line level. And there we go. We've got that level. Okay, so we have that string in. We need to put another line parallel to that, and we're not going to get it perfect at first, but we definitely want to try to get close. So the distance that I want is not a true 12 feet. The distance I want is 11 foot, 11 and 1/8 inches. The reason for that is so that after we build the framing of the walls, the sheathing will meet at the corners and butt up against each other, and I won't have a gap. So we're going to go ahead and measure out our 11 foot, 11 and 1/8 inches from that post over to this corner. We're going to pop in another stake. We're going to guess at a 90-degree angle, and that's going to be our starting point. Now we can hook this right directly on the line because it's on the outside of that stake. It's not going to go anywhere. All right, let's guess at a 90-degree angle. We want 11 foot, 11 and 1/8 inch. All right. And we're going to drop this stake so that its corner is right at that mark. And that's where we're going to pound it in at. There we go. We're going to do the same thing on the other end. Again, guessing at 90 degrees. And going out to 11 foot, 11 and 1/8 inches. And dropping this stake just to the inside of that so that the string itself will render to the outside. All right, that's in there deep enough that it's not going to deflect. Now, as I mentioned before, I want my lines to be level so that my measurements are correct. I'm not using a laser. I'm just going to use the line level. But what that means is, since I know that string's not going to move, I'm going to go ahead and pull another string from that corner to that corner just to make sure I get them level. All right. All right. Pretty close. Just need to bring this up here. Oop. Right up too far. There we go. There we go. That is close enough for now. It is really close. It's just a hair off. And when we actually put up the pier blocks and the brackets for the foundation for the floor, we'll make sure we use that laser level to get them perfect. I just happen to have some string here that I will use to do this end. Same thing, same thing. All right, there we go. I'm gonna get it real close so I can get this and roll this around and basically this string left. Your tight string. Oops, or loose string. There we go. Pretty close. All right. Now I want to see just how much I have. So I am going to just measure that long line there and see what I've got. Oh yeah, I've got 24 foot, over 24 foot. I have 24 feet and 4 inches. So that's good because it gives me plenty of room to work with. I've got about an extra 8 feet that I don't actually need to play with. And that means that if I am way off of square, it's okay because I've got room. All right. And because I have those 8 feet to work with, I'm going to move in about to here. And the reason is I'm going to have a wood stove right there, and I want it as far away from those trees as possible. In fact, I'll probably end up cutting those trees down, but for now, I just want to build a little bit farther away from there. So the next step is going to be to put a stake in to put my corner a little closer to where I actually want to build. Okay, so here I am, and I'm going to put this stake right here. I'm going to hold it so that it just barely touches the string, and I'm holding it kind of loosely, just tight enough to keep it in my hand so that it'll go down fairly plumb. Oh, I hit a rock, and that's going to affect where it goes. There we go. And now pound that in. We want it just barely touching the string, so we don't pull that string out of alignment. Oop, got a lot of rocks here. All right. All right, so this is probably going to be the easiest way I have ever seen to find square. And that is, now that I have established this is going to be the corner of my shed, I'm going to take my tape measure. I'm going to hook it on right adjacent to that stake I put in. And what that does is that stake is holding that string so it doesn't deflect. I'm going to come down to that end, and the point at which this tape is the shortest, that is the point where I'm at a 90-degree angle here. So, right now, I am at 11 foot, 11 inches, 11 and a 16th, 11 and an 1/8, back to 11 foot, 11 inches, and we're growing again. So, right here, 11 foot, 11 inches, that is exactly where I'm square. Now, that is only 1/8 of an inch off from where I intend my edge of my house to be. There we go. So, I'm going to give myself that 1/8 of an inch. All right. And I'm going to put that stake in right there. All right. just like that. I know that from that post to that post, or from that stake to that stake, is perfectly square. Now I'm going to go back to the other side. I'm going to measure my 16 feet, and I'm going to come back after putting in a stake, and I'm going to measure again square. The 11 foot, 11 and 1/8 inches. So let's go ahead and do that. Ready? Okay, here we are. We got 60 feet. So here we are. We've got 12 feet. Nope, sorry. 11 foot, 11 and 15/16. And now it's getting shorter, longer, exactly 12 foot. Got 15/16, back to 12 foot. Looks like right here, 11 and 15/16, that's where I'm square. Now, I'm going to put that stake where it is 11 and 1/8 inch. Oops, I moved. There we go. So, just double check that. 11 foot, 11 and 8. All right. I now have two parallel lines, and I have, I believe, my stakes 16 feet apart, and I believe that they're square. But there is a way to double check, and that is using a little bit of high school math. Okay, in order to use the Pythagorean theorem, in order to find if I am square, we have to find the hypotenuse of a diagonal line going through the middle of my rectangle there. So we're going to convert everything to inches because otherwise I'm lost. We'll start with 11 foot times 12. That's going to get those inches. We're going to add 11 inches. And to that, we're going to add 0.125, which is 1/8 of an inch. Here we have 143.125 inches. We're going to call that A. Now, we're going to clear that, and we're going to convert the 16 feet to inches by also multiplying that by 12. That's 192 inches. And we're going to call that B. Now, clear that again. 143.125 squared, that's a big number, plus 192 squared, that equals 57,348.765. 5. Now we are going to take the square root of that number. We get 239.476. To turn that back into feet, we're simply going to divide by 12. Now, 19.956 feet. Let me get my calculator out. 0.956 times 12. Yeah, it's 11 and a half inches. So 19 foot, 11.47 inches. We're going to call that good enough, 11 and a half. So I'm going to need my diagonal line to be 19 foot, 11.472 inches. Now the next thing that I want to do, because remember I said we're going to use pier blocks, we're actually going to use 3 columns of 4 pier blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 3 columns, so we have a total of 12 pier blocks. But I have to have piers going right down the center. Technically, I only need piers right at the center here because I can span up to 8 feet safely for a floor. However, I don't believe in just barely, and neither does Brock. So we're putting that extra line right down the middle to make sure that we don't get sag. So I am going to measure corner to corner here, 6 feet, and I'm just going to put a stake right there at 6 feet. All right, 5 foot, 6 foot is right here. And we're going to stake right inside, right at center line 6 o'clock. So there we go. Put it just barely touching the string. A lot of here, a little hole. There we go. Yeah, I'm right, I think. But hammer. So ahead again. How do you? Oh, we're losing your spot. There we go. All right, I'm going to get into the same there. All right, 6 foot. And how do you? Now the next thing that I want to do is mark out where the other rows of piers are going to be. So we have our columns marked, and now we just need to know where they're going to intersect so we know where to put those other pier blocks. So I'm going to have to use 4 more stakes. I've got 2 there and I have 2 in my wheelbarrow. It's going to be perfect. So again, right here, that stake goes to 5 foot. 5 foot, 4 inches, that's 64 inches. Put a stake inside. Put it in, you guys right here. There we go. Put the stake on the side. 5 foot, 4 inches. And we'll go down the string. Okay. All right, again, 64 inches. There we go. What's the woods? And 64 inches. And there you have it. In just somebody with no experience, in about an hour, much less for you because I'll cut out the wasted time. In about an hour, I have laid out a perfect rectangle at the correct dimensions for the foundation for my 12 by 16 shed. So, if you like this video, Make sure that you like it, subscribe. If you've got any tips or questions, make sure that you leave a comment. As always, God bless. I'll see you next time. And remember, it doesn't matter how old you are. It's never too late to start. That's right. You gotta go. Too bad. And you. And you. And you. And you. I'm not sorry. Come on, you're going to go. Probably go.